It's me again, Sarah from FanGirl Review, and today we are going to review a classic for you guys called Snow White, the Disney version that came out many years ago. And before we get into it, I thought I might bring up the facts about what's been happening with the live action one that's coming. I'm not sure if it's coming out, to be honest, because there has been a lot of static about it, and since the announcements about it either coming out or either discontinuing has left me wondering about what's happening with it. I mean, so far I've been hearing many different views on the subject of whether they're going to be cancelling the Disney project or will they still continue with it and wait until next year to release it. So it's a little hard to grasp who is telling the right story in this point at a time. Rachel Zegler, who has been auditioned for the role to play Snow White, has been saying nasty things about the original, which I think she should not have done that because there's a big fan base for the original Snow White. It goes back to 1930s, and it's been the foundation of Walt Disney and his movies and cartoons, and since Snow White has developed this very big fan base for all its other movies and has become the best of the best, and it has been a really good movie, and I don't see any big problems with it, unlike other people who say, oh, I have a big problem with the political correctness, the whole not allowed to be kissed when you're unconscious type thing. It just drives me bananas how many people have out there made out that this whole no consent kiss is an issue. It just drives me nuts, to be honest. When some people just only get not the full story about Snow White and don't seem to get it, really, to be honest. Just so you guys know, the original Snow White story came from the Grimm's brothers' tales, and for years it has changed the story a little bit in bits, like the parts where Snow White didn't die, obviously, and had the apple bit stuck in her throat, which kind of caused her to go into a coma-like state, giving the impression to the dwarfs and to the prince that she was dead, but at the same time she was in a coma. So anyway, in the original story, she was the prince finds her and suggests to take her to his family crypt for a better protection and all that stuff. So he takes her body from the dwarfs, and one of his servants knocks against the coffin, causing her to have the apple in her throat dislodged, and she coughs it up. And soon enough, she and the prince are married, and the evil queen gets what she deserves, a hot pair of shoes where she dances at their wedding. Which is very funny. Well, not really funny, actually. It sounds very tragic. But, of course, I don't see a problem with Disneyland's Snow White, to be honest. So many people think in Disney, the Disney guys at the moment think that there's so many problems with it, and I don't see any big problems with it. I think a lot of girls out there like the whole prince and princess theme thing. I even took the time out to actually talk to my niece, who's a big princess and unicorn fan. So I asked her a few questions about, what she likes about princesses. You like princesses?
Because they wear really pretty dresses.
And do you like that they're leaders?
No.
Do you like the fact that they're a positive influence?
Yeah.
No. So, what else do you like about princesses?
They wear crowns and they're pretty.
And is there anything else you like about them?
No. Princess Aurora.
Why?
Because she's pink and that's my favorite color.
What about purple?
No. That's a good color, but not for me.
That's cute. Anything else? Who else do you like about her? Do you like the fact she fell in love with Prince?
And she's pretty. Like me.
So you can see in the video that she's not exactly asking for, unlike Rachel Zegler, who claims that princesses, that the theme for a princess should be becoming, not dreaming about becoming the next leader, but more about not dreaming about becoming looking for love, but more to looking forward to becoming the next ruler. That sounds more like the Evil Queen's motives of why she wants to rule. She wants to become a leader. She wants to take control. She wants to rule over her subjects, whether or not wisely or well. I don't get it why they want to change the story and try to remove the prince from this equation, because to me, ruling a kingdom without, even having love in your life, it sounds like a very sad situation. So I don't know if I like the fact if I were a princess and I was locked in a tower or, waiting for my prince, I would want to feel that I was, I also had love in my life. I don't like the fact if I was either, I had everything, I had a throne, I had a crown, I had all the beautiful dresses in the world, would I want to make sure I still have love in my life? I know my niece told me that she wanted to be a princess because she liked the pretty dresses and stuff like that. That's normal for her because she is at that age where, to her, princesses are all about the princess dresses and crowns and stuff like that. So I have no issue with that sort of thing. Anyway, so I'll dive into the actual movie itself and get into more details about the story itself later as I go. So the story begins where it says in the narration beginning of it, where it says that the evil queen takes over and has put her stepdaughter into slavery, or into making her a bond servant and all that. So as she's doing scullery maid stuff, where she's washing the floor, she tells some doves about how she wishes that she would meet someone, and one day that someone who comes on this white horse appears. He frightens her a little bit, but then he kind of serenades her with this beautiful song where he says, and it's so beautiful and romantic and very timeless and classic. And of course Snow White is attracted to him, and the evil queen sees this, and previously in the movie she's like saying, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" And of course the mirror says, because he has to say it very truthfully, that it's her, the Snow White, who is the fairest of them all. And this upsets the queen, so she suggests to her huntsman, take my stepdaughter into the woods where she picks nice flowers and stuff like that, and have her killed. Of course the huntsman objects to this, but being the huntsman, he has no other choice but to do this. But, and there's a big but, he has to bring back Snow White's heart as proof that she was killed. Then we cross over to Snow White in the woods, getting flowers and singing the song that the prince sang to her. Is this a girl saying that she doesn't wish to be a leader? I don't think so. She's in love with this prince. I don't see an issue here. Do you? No. Anyway, so the princess meets the little bird and tells him to learn to teach it to fly. And while she's doing this, she gets distracted by the huntsman about to approach with a very big knife in his hand. He's about to pull a Jason Voorhees as we speak, but he then changes his mind, feeling a little guilty about what he was about to do. He then tells her to run all into the woods and stuff like that. So she runs into the woods, gets creeped out by the forest, but soon enough she realizes how foolish she was when she realizes the animals there are more frightened of her. So she calms down a little bit and she befriends the animals, and the animals help her find a place to live in. A small secluded little little wood house, and there she notices it's completely dirty and disgusting. So she starts cleaning it because she thinks that this house was that the people, the occupants inside the house, are children. So she thinks she should do the right thing and clean the place for them, and a friendly gesture. Hopefully they'll allow her to stay and stuff like that. Soon enough, we meet the occupants of the house, who are not children, but actually dwarfs, who are mining inside a coal mine, looking for diamonds and rubies and whatnot. And there we get the famous song, the dwarf song that we often hear a lot in the past. That's memorable and kind of cool. And I have no issue with the whole dwarf thing. I heard on the grapevine that Peter from Game of Thrones, he objected to the live action movie for having stereotyped dwarfs playing in it. I have no issue with the stereotypeness so much. You could easily change a little bit of the dynamics of the dwarfs by changing their storyline, trying to make them a little smarter. Like, I have no issue if the dwarfs are a little more smarter and a little bit more braver. I mean, they were brave in this movie. How they could go and defend, fight off, and chase down the evil queen. I have no issue with that. I think that was a brave thing and cruel thing they did. Very awesome thing they did. So anyway, the dwarfs head home, and there they meet Snow White, who's sleeping in their beds. And instead of, while Grumpy, he objects to her staying and thinks she should just plain old just get lost. But of course the other dwarfs all agree to allow her to stay and look after them, and look after their clothes, and look after and cook and clean for them. And they don't object to this because they are very busy at the mall, in the mines all day, and don't have time to cook, obviously. And well, it's a nice gesture. So it's sort of a good agreement, even though some people would say this is not right. But it seems like a good compromise, to be honest, and all that stuff. So, at first, still Grumpy doesn't like the idea that Snow White is joining them and becoming their friends and stuff. Soon enough, the evil queen hears about, through the mirror, that Snow White is living in the dwarf's house and is safe and not hurt. Of course, she projects the heart of Snow White, and of course the mirror says, "You have the heart of a dead pig." So the huntsman tricked her, and so she takes it upon herself to go down to her lab to make a potion to disguise herself so she could fool Snow White into thinking she's a peasant. So she makes the potion up, where we're using special ingredients, and soon enough she turns into this creepy old hag. And I gotta admit, I do think this bit is creepy and scary. I don't know what Rachel's bit about how she thinks the whole movie is so scary and stuff. I don't see it as completely scary. Some of it's really nice, has a little bit of fantasy and a little bit of romance and a little adventure, which is exciting. And I agree, it's an interesting mixture of themes in this movie and genres. So anyway, meanwhile, while it's happening, the dwarfs and Snow White, they dance, sing, and she tells them a romantic story about her and the prince. And she sings this beautiful song that everyone knows about called "Someday My Prince Will Come." That is my favorite of all the songs in Snow White, because I remember Marussia, a famous Australian singer, singing it at the Andre Rio concert, and she sings so beautifully, especially that particular song. I remember she did it with a quartet of girls, and they sang it very beautifully, and it's one song that has not got out of my head, and I think it's the same thing for a lot of other girls and women as I go along. So anyway, after the song, they go off to bed, and the dwarfs say you can go sleep in our room while we sleep in the kitchen. And they must look like, and it's funny how they slept in the kitchen because there's not many places to sleep in, obviously. Anyway, soon enough, the evil queen makes this poisonous apple that will put Snow White to sleep, and the only cure is true love's first kiss. And I know what you're thinking. This is This is a not really good thing, because kissing someone you know without knowing they're in love isn't right. All that stuff. But it's not. To me, this is not an issue. Everyone seems to think it's an issue. Kissing without consent. It's just a pain in the ass and stuff like that. I don't get it when people say this sort of thing, because if she didn't get kissed, she would be considered dead for the rest of her life. It's not a good story for children. Tell me about it. Anyway, so anyway, the queen begins her long journey to the cottage. Obviously, the dwarfs are on their way to heading out to do their mining, and the Snow White's left alone with her animal friends, making a gooseberry pie for the dwarfs. And I like it that she writes in it that it's going to be for Grumpy and stuff. I think at this point, even after she kisses him, I think deep down Grumpy is starting to fall for her, like all the other dwarf men were falling for her. I think deep down he does care a great deal. I mean, aside being grumpy, I think grumpy is often misinterpreted a lot when I think about this movie. That he's just because he's angry a lot. I think he's just overprotective of his brothers, and when he saw Snow White as an intruder in that sort of circumstance, he was trying to use absolute hearts to protect his brothers from likely danger. So, and when he does eventually find out Snow White is in danger, he takes upon himself to lead the dwarfs to chase after the evil queen. And that's a really heroic thing. So he should be renamed Heroic or Hero or something cool like that. Anyway, so back to the story. The evil queen appears and tries to befriend Snow White, and even offers her an apple. It's a beautiful reddish apple, and of course, as you know, it's a poison apple. The woodland creatures try to see through this act and fight her off, telling her to go away. But Snow White defends the old evil queen and invites her inside the house. Well, actually, the queen invites herself inside the house, I should say. Anyway, the animals know the danger, so they race to the dwarfs' mine, and they try to get them to see that Cinderella is in danger. Of course, Snorri, Sleepy notices, and this is where the dwarfs decide to ride deers to get to the cottage quickly. Obviously, I like this scene because it's rather kind of adventurous and romantic and exciting. Anyway, the evil queen tells Snow White that this apple is no ordinary apple. It's a magical apple that will grant her biggest dreams and desires. And she's not wrong there. It kind of grants her biggest dream of meeting her prince again. So, as Snow White takes the apple, she makes a wish that she hopes that someday her prince will come and carry her away to his castle where they'll live happily ever after. Anyway, so Snow White bites into the apple, feeling a bit queasy, and she passes out or dies off screen, obviously, because this is still a kids movie, obviously, or family related movie. And as the queen laughs and says gleefully that she is no longer among the living, she leaves the cottage. And as she leaves, the dwarfs start riding their deers towards her. And she quickly tries to make her way through the forest. And as she climbs up a higher hill or mountain, she gets trapped there, and the dwarfs are approaching her. So she uses a boulder and tries to use it as a way of trying to crush them all. But luckily enough, the lightning strikes and she falls to her death, and the boulder itself that was meant for the dwarfs falls back onto her. And then we watch as her death is killed. She's killed off screen, obviously. Then we cross over to Snow White lying, and lying on a bed, and we see all the dwarfs crying over her dead body and stuff like that, and not having the heart. They in the narration it says they didn't have the heart to bury her, so they decide to put her in a special glass and gold coffin that will allow her body to be seen by all, but they'll look upon her every single time they see her. Then 1 year later, we hear a story how the prince that has met Snow White, you know, that part in the opening scene, is looking for Snow White, and he does find her eventually, where he sees the dwarfs mourning over her dead body and presenting flowers and stuff like that, and the animals are there, and all the time they're grieving over her dead body, obviously. And the prince approaches her, and he romantically puts a kiss on her mouth. So, you guys know, I want to point this out to you, all of you guys, like usual. So you guys know, at funerals, open casket funerals, people are allowed to actually to hold the hand of or even kiss their dead loved one. I don't see an issue here. Some people think, oh, this is disgusting, that he's kissing her without her consent, yada yada yada. As I said before, the prince and dwarfs, they don't know she's alive. They don't even know this is a spell. They think she's dead, technically. So I don't see an issue here, unlike other people who do. So I know I said it in the past, but I just think that people will go overboard about this whole, oh, she's unconscious. But how do the dwarfs know that she's unconscious? They cannot feel her pulse. They cannot give her mouth-to-mouth, because mouth-to-mouth wasn't invented until 1960. So Walt Disney would have not known about that either. So you're looking at the wrong decade to think that you can use CPR at this time of day, time of year. Anyway, the prince kisses her, and he bows down praying for her, you know, for dying and all that stuff. And then slowly she revives, and she wakes and sees the prince, and then she is happy to see him. She somehow, even though the witch tricked her at the in that scene, she got her wish in the end, that she was going to be carried away by her prince and taken away to his castle, which she does after a brief goodbye to all the dwarfs in the end. Then we watch as they are approaching this castle in the clouds. I often think, a lot of people keep thinking this castle is in heaven somewhere. My interpretation on this is that she's going to a better kingdom than the one she was with the queen. So that's my interpretation, because she's going to a better place, and will be a lot more happier there. Even though she was a lot happy with the dwarfs, but she'll be happy that knowing that she'll be living with a handsome prince and is living the happy lifestyle that she deserves in the end. So that's Snow White, and as I said before, I have no issues with the whole censored kiss. I watched this interesting cartoon on social media, where a prince who was about to kiss Snow White or Sleeping Beauty, and he realized, oh, this is a censored, this is an unconsent kiss, and he goes away. And then a few years later, she's a dead skeleton. Now, guys, seeing as most of you guys out there, the people who keep going on about how this is unconsent kiss and stuff like that, they should realize that if this didn't happen, she would be living in a coma state and then maybe dying from this, eventually at one point. So I don't have an issue with this non-censored kiss stuff. So non-consent kiss sort of thing. I don't have an issue with it. It's all part of the story, in my opinion, and stuff like that. I also don't have an issue with the dwarfs, in the production. I do hope that if for some reason that they go back and rethink their story, because the more I think about Rachel's accusations about the original, the more I feel like she's going to anger a lot of fans who have been around for many years. The thing is, this movie has started back in the 1930s. this movie has developed a very big fandom, just like all the other movies have developed a big fandom. You cannot begrudge those movies because they have developed a very big fandom since for years. From the moment those movies came out, it's developed it continues to grow the audiences, continues to interest children, interest adults, interest women and everywhere. I don't have an issue with it. If they want to make Snow White a strong feminist character, I have no issue for her to still not seek out true love and stuff like that. I have no issue with true love because I'm still on the lookout for true love. I do think that Disney should actually take a look at other studios along the lines and realize, looking at other prince and princess movies, you'll find that most of the time there you see the strong feminist women, but they do eventually fall for the handsome prince and fall in love with him. I don't have an issue with. As I said before, this movie is a really good one, and I love that song where she sings, "One Day My Prince Will Come." That's a beautiful song. I do think it's a romantic and great, and it still touches my heart and stuff like that. And I think it's worth This movie is worth watching, and I mean, the original is worth watching. And I don't think Rachel's accusation saying it's scary and creepy. I don't think she's. I keep thinking sometimes that she watched the opening and the ending, and I don't like it that she accuses the prince, the current prince, of being a stalker. I don't feel that he's the stalker type. I don't see him as a type to go on TikTok and stalk Snow White that way, or send her creepy messages on her phone, or even going out of his way and peeking through her windows while she's undressing. I don't see him as that sort of thing. And 2 times, we only seen the prince 2 times in this movie. In the opening scene, where she's falling in love with him, and the ending scene where she sees him and her wish is fulfilled, that she's finally going to live the life that she always wanted with him. I don't see an issue here. This movie is still, in my opinion, the best of, Snow White movie ever, in my opinion. I have seen several other ones in the past, mostly modern, mostly different ones done by different studios, and they still capture Snow White in a big way. And I think the studios should actually check out those ones before making accusations about the original. And I don't like it that they even what's the word I'm looking for? Use political correctness for this one by trying to cast Rachel Zegler because she's as we know, she's Hispanic and all that stuff, but she doesn't come off as Snow White to me. I know a lot of people out there have said this before, and I'm probably going to be not the last person, but I do not think she's Snow White material at this point, because aside from her accusations for the original, she has this, I don't think while I've read the story, really well. In fact, it says that Snow White had black hair and skin as white as snow and lips as red as blood. If it was named after something else, like named a different name, then I could let this all go and say, I have no issue here. But as I said before, it's called Snow White for a reason, the live action one. So you got to admit that you cannot change or ignore the fact it's called Snow White. Why is she called Snow White? Because she has white skin. So even though in the past I'm okay with casting different types of people in my productions, I don't mind that, but when it comes to a role like this, you need to focus on the features of the character as much as possible. Follow through with that particular character's appearance a little bit, while at the same time trying to make sure that she has the good enacting ability for the production. I still think it's one of the most memorable of Snow White movies that are out there. I like the fact that this was the foundation headstone to this Disney company that has grown and developed, and over the years we've still have made some really incredible movies along the way. And I almost would hope, now that we've gone, I think it's the 100th year to this, since 100th year, they just announced their sort of their anniversary this year. So it's nice that they got so are in demand. Of course, thanks to their live action movies, they kind of disappointed or upset a lot of fans sometimes. So I think it's the most upset ones are the ones who are upset about the whole Little Mermaid and the upcoming Snow White one. Those two are really throwing a lot of heat in the moment. So I do hope somewhere along the lines that they may have to go back and recast the new Snow White, get actual dwarfs to play the roles, because the dwarf community is rather annoyed because of Peter, the Game of Thrones actor, went ahead and said stuff like this, and has caused a domino effect with studios deciding not to cast dwarfs to play such roles. Like I know I said this before about the Wonka movie that's coming out, where they casted Hugh Grant, and that one of course caused a lot of headwaves with the dwarf community too. So at the moment, a lot of dwarfs are really annoyed at the moment that they're not casted in likely roles like these. So I do hope the studio heads will start realizing that you're upsetting the dwarf community, and that they might have to try to look ahead and try to hire more dwarfs in their productions. I think that's much more important, to make sure that they're appreciated and that they're shown that their work is noticed and more. Anyway, so I'm going to rate this now. I'm going to rate it 5 stars out of 5. That's my high equivalent. So I hope you guys may actually check out the original Snow White. I think that you might find it enjoyable too, and let me know in the comments like usual what you guys think of it, and have a good week everyone. So I'll see you guys next time on my next movie review, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.